They thought Earth was primitive. Until the war began. The Grand Overseer of the Zalaxian hegemony stood tall on his 6 backward-jointed legs, his iridescent chitin gleaming under the 3 purple suns of the Centauri nexus. His antennae twitched, with barely contained excitement as he addressed the High Council of Galactic Affairs. Distinguished members of the Council, today marks the 7,000th cycle since our glorious expansion began. Our empire now spans 17 galactic clusters, and our technological supremacy remains unchallenged. The Council members, representing 43 distinct species from across the known universe, clicked, hummed, gurgled, and flashed their approval. Some communicated through pheromone bursts, others through bioluminescent patterns, and a few through quantum telepathy. Yet they all understood one another perfectly thanks to the neural translation matrices embedded in their cerebral cortices, standard diplomatic procedure for all advanced civilizations. As is tradition, continued the Grand Overseer, we have identified the next primitive world for assessment and potential integration, a small, unremarkable blue planet in the backwater Orion spur of the Milky Way. The dominant species call their world Earth and themselves humans. The central hologram shifted to display a rotating image of Earth, with its disproportionate water coverage and its single, pathetically small moon. Preliminary scans indicate they have achieved rudimentary space travel, but remain confined to their own solar system. They have harnessed nuclear energy, but still primarily burn fossilized organic matter for power. Their communications rely on electromagnetic radiation rather than quantum entanglement. They have yet to solve their own biological mortality. A ripple of amusement passed through the Council, a mixture of clicks, bubbles, and telepathic chuckles. In accordance with Protocol 7293B, the Grand Overseer continued, we will dispatch an assessment delegation to determine their value to the hegemony. As always, we will evaluate their scientific potential, resource management, philosophical development, and military capabilities. The Zalaxian paused, his faceted eyes gleaming with institutional pride. Though I suspect, like the other primitive species we've encountered, they will be categorized as a Class 3 civilization, sufficient for resource extraction and labor, but requiring at least 40,000 cycles of development before meaningful contribution to our collective knowledge. General Crix of the Vargon Defense. Force raised one of his tentacles. Being a marine species, he participated via a hovering water sphere that allowed him to breathe while attending council sessions. With respect, Overseer, I recommend we conduct a standard military probe alongside the assessment. Primitive species can sometimes display unexpected aggression when confronted with superior beings. The Grand Overseer's mandibles clicked in, what the universal translator rendered as a condescending chuckle. Your militaristic caution is noted, General. However, our preliminary scans indicate their most advanced weapons involve crude nuclear fission and primitive guided projectiles. They pose no more threat to our delegation than a Zarelian sand mite would to a Kronos battlecruiser. Nevertheless, gurgled General Crix, his gill slits pulsating with mild agitation, I request permission to send a single military observer. For the official record, of course. The Grand Overseer waved a clawed appendage dismissively. Granted, though I assure you, the humans will be too busy gawking at our technology to consider anything remotely hostile. And so, it was decided, the Zalaxian hegemony would assess Earth and its inhabitants, as it had done with thousands of worlds before. The humans would be studied, classified, and eventually integrated into the vast cosmic empire. Another species added to the glorious tapestry of the hegemony. None of the council members could have possibly anticipated what would happen next. The assessment delegation vessel Enlightened Dominance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its quantum drives humming quietly as it transitioned to conventional propulsion. The ship, roughly the size of Earth's moon, was primarily a scientific vessel, though it carried enough firepower to reduce a planet to molten slag if necessary. Commander Vexalia, a third-generation spaceborne Zalaxian, surveyed her crew with quiet satisfaction. The assessment team consisted of the finest xenobiologists, anthropologists, and technological analysts in the hegemony. and as requested by General Crix, a single military observer, Lieutenant Zorax of the Vargon Defense Force. "Begin passive scanning," ordered Commander Vexalia. "Standard observation protocols. Let's see what these humans are up to before we announce ourselves." Lieutenant Zorax, his tentacles slightly constricted inside his ceremonial battle harness, positioned himself by the tactical display. "Commander, with respect, shouldn't we establish a defensive perimeter? Even primitive species can be unpredictable." Vexalia's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Lieutenant, I've led 17 first contact missions. Trust me when I say that. Primitive species follow predictable patterns. They either worship us as gods, attack us out of fear, or stand in slack-jawed amazement at our technology." "And what do we do if they attack?" pressed Zorax. "We swat them like the insects they essentially are," replied Vexalia, "though that rarely becomes necessary. Most species recognize their inferiority quickly enough." The ship's sensors began collecting data, creating a comprehensive profile of Earth's technological capabilities, social structures, and biological diversity. The science officer, a gelatinous morphin named Blix, undulated with surprise as the first reports came in. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual. The humans appear to be engaged in 437 different armed conflicts simultaneously across their planet." Vexalia's antennae twitched with mild interest. "How quaint. Internal squabbles over resources, no doubt. Any indication they've detected our presence?" "Negative, Commander. Their sensor technology is primitive, barely able to detect objects beyond their own moon. However, they do maintain several thousand nuclear weapons in a state of constant readiness targeted at each other." Lieutenant Zorax's water bubble rippled with concern. "They keep planet killers aimed at themselves? That's unusual tactical thinking." "It's not tactical thinking," Vexalia corrected. "It's primitive posturing, deterrence through mutually assured destruction. Most species go through this phase before they develop unified planetary governance." The communication officer, a crystalline lumerite whose facets glowed with shifting patterns, chimed in. "Commander, I've been analyzing their global information network. They call it the Internet. It's chaotic, unregulated, and filled with contradictory information, but it provides an excellent window into their culture." "And what have you learned?" asked Vexalia. "They're remarkably fractious. Thousands of languages, ideologies, and governmental systems. They appear to expend significant resources on creating simulated realities they call entertainment, fictional scenarios for their own amusement." Vexalia's antennae twitched with mild amusement. "How inefficient. Energy that could be directed toward advancement, wasted on fantasy." Lieutenant Zorax, still studying the tactical display, suddenly stiffened. "Commander, I'm detecting what appears to be a small vessel approaching from the third planet." "Impossible," chittered Vexalia. "Our scans confirm they have no deep space capability." "Nevertheless," insisted Zorax, "a vessel is approaching at approximately 1/10 light speed. It will intercept our position in 6 standard units." Commander Vexalia clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Fascinating. Perhaps we've underestimated them slightly. Prepare the reception bay and first contact protocols. It seems the humans are more observant than we anticipated." The crew busied themselves with preparations, setting up the ceremonial first contact chamber with its imposing display of technological marvels designed to impress primitive species. They positioned the universal translator prominently and prepared the standard gifts: the cure for 500 common genetic diseases, a small fusion reactor, and a basic star map of the local cluster. Lieutenant Zorax, however, insisted on stationing a security detail near the reception bay, despite Commander Vexalia's assurance that it was unnecessary. As the small Earth vessel approached, the sensors provided more detailed information. It was crewed by hegemony standards, using what appeared to be a primitive form of antimatter propulsion. It carried a single life form. "One pilot?" mused Vexalia. "How curious. Perhaps they sent their bravest warrior as an emissary." The enlightened dominance extended its tractor beam, gently guiding the human vessel into the massive reception bay. The crew gathered to witness this historic moment, the first official contact between the mighty Zalaxian hegemony and the primitive humans of Earth. The Earth vessel, little more than a metal capsule with engines attached, settled onto the deck. A hatch on its side slowly opened, and a cloud of vapor escaped, temporarily obscuring their view of the occupant. When the vapor cleared, there stood a human. It was smaller than expected, with only 2 legs and 2 arms covered in some kind of synthetic blue material. Its head had a patch of dark fibers on top, and its skin was a pinkish beige color. Most striking was how physically unimpressive it appeared. No natural weapons, no protective exoskeleton, no apparent special adaptations. The human looked around, scratched its head, and then spoke. Hi there. I seem to be a bit lost. Any chance you folks know the way to Alpha Centauri? My nav system went haywire around Jupiter. The universal translator processed this statement, and Commander Vexalia's compound eyes widened in surprise. This wasn't the reaction they typically received from primitive species making first contact with an advanced civilization. Human, Vexalia began formally. I am Commander Vexalia of the Zalaxian Hegemony Assessment Delegation. We have come to evaluate your species for potential integration into our galactic empire. Your approach suggests unexpected technological capabilities. The human blinked twice, then let out a strange barking sound that the translator identified as laughter. Galactic Empire? That's a new one. Name's Dave, by the way. Dave Thornton, test pilot. Was just taking our new prototype for a spin when the guidance system went all wonky. The human, Dave, stepped further out of his craft, looking around, with apparent curiosity rather than fear or awe. Nice setup you've got here, very shiny. Lieutenant Zorax moved closer to Commander Vexalia and lowered his voice. This is highly irregular. The human displays no appropriate reverence or fear. Indeed, agreed Vexalia. Human Dave, you seem remarkably unconcerned about encountering an advanced alien civilization. Dave shrugged, a gesture the translator had difficulty interpreting. Oh, we've known about aliens for decades, Area 51 and all that. Just never made official contact. Too busy with our own problems, you know? Climate change, reality TV, deciding whether pineapple belongs on pizza. The important stuff. Commander Vexalia's antennae twitched in confusion. Our scans indicated no evidence of previous extraterrestrial contact with your world. Well, we're pretty good at keeping secrets, Dave replied, wandering over to examine a nearby control panel. So, this empire of yours, you guys conquer planets often? The directness of the question caught Vexalia off guard. The hegemony doesn't conquer. We assess, integrate, and elevate primitive species to serve the greater cosmic order. Uh-huh, said Dave, in a tone the translator flagged as skeptical. And if a species doesn't want to be elevated? That would be irrational, Vexalia stated. All species benefit from hegemony membership. Dave nodded slowly. Right. Hey, is there somewhere I could get a coffee around here? Long trip, bit parched. The abrupt change of subject created momentary confusion among the delegation. Lieutenant Zorax's tentacles tightened around his ceremonial weapon. Commander, he urged, this human is not behaving according to any known first contact protocol. I recommend we initiate containment procedures. Before Vexalia could respond, Dave had wandered over to another control panel and was studying it with apparent fascination. Cool buttons, what does this one do? He reached out a finger. Do not touch that, exclaimed Vexalia, her voice rising to a pitch that made several crew members flinch. That controls the quantum harmonization field for the entire ship. Dave withdrew his hand. Sorry, just curious. We humans like to push buttons and see what happens. Got us to the moon that way. He paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. So what happens now? You probe me? Take me to your leader? The usual alien stuff. Commander Vexalia attempted to regain control of the situation. Human Dave, you will be the first of your species to undergo comprehensive assessment. We We'll evaluate your biological capabilities, technological understanding, and cultural development. Based on our findings, we will determine Earth's classification within the hegemony hierarchy. Dave scratched his chin. Sounds bureaucratic. Do I get a say in this, or? Your cooperation is appreciated but not required, stated Vexalia. The assessment will proceed regardless. Figured as much, sighed Dave. Well, lead on, I guess. But I'm telling you now, if probing is involved, I'm going to need dinner first. I'm old-fashioned that way. As the assessment delegation led the strangely nonchalant human deeper into the ship, Lieutenant Zorax maintained a safe distance, his military training screaming that something was very, very wrong with this situation. The human showed none of the expected reactions. No fear, minimal awe, and an inexplicable casualness that bordered on disrespect. Most concerning of all was the nagging question that kept pulsing through Zorax's highly trained tactical mind. How had this primitive human managed to detect their ship when their stealth technology was supposed to be undetectable to pre-quantum civilizations? Over the next 72 standard units, Dave Thornton underwent a series of tests and evaluations that would have terrified or overwhelmed most primitive species. He was scanned down to the molecular level. His cognitive functions were mapped, and his physiological responses to various stimuli were meticulously recorded. Throughout it all, he maintained an air of relaxed curiosity that increasingly unsettled the assessment team. Fascinating, murmured Chief Xenobiologist Traz, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence as she reviewed the data. The human's biological structure is remarkably inefficient. Single cardiopulmonary system, limited sensory capabilities, fragile skeletal structure, and yet what? Pressed Commander Vexalia. Yet he displays unusual neurological adaptability. His brain forms new neural pathways at a rate I've never observed in a primitive species. When presented with complex problems, he doesn't solve them. Systematically as expected, he makes intuitive leaps that bypass established logical progressions. Lieutenant Zorax, who had insisted on observing all tests, curled his tentacles pensively. Could this indicate some form of biological enhancement? Perhaps they're not as primitive as they appear. Dave, who was currently solving a multidimensional puzzle designed to take most species several hours to complete, called out cheerfully, "If you folks are talking about me, I'd appreciate being included in the conversation. Not a big fan of being discussed like a lab specimen." The universal translator conveyed his words, along with the casual tone that continued to confound the assessment team. Commander Vexalia approached the testing chamber. "Human Dave, your performance exceeds our initial projections for your species. How is it that you can solve quantum probability matrices without formal training in non-linear mathematics?" Dave glanced up from the puzzle, which he had nearly completed. "This thing? It's basically just a fancy Rubik's Cube. I was state champion back in college. As for quantum whatever, I just move the pieces until they look right. Intuition, no. Intuition is not a scientifically valid methodology," stated Traz. "And yet," Dave replied with a grin, clicking the final piece into place, "it gets the job done." The completed puzzle pulsed with light, projecting a holographic model of a complex molecular structure, the solution to a theoretical biochemical compound that the hegemony scientists had been working on for decades. Traz's antennae straightened, in shock. "That's impossible. The solution requires understanding of quantum biochemistry that no primitive species could possess." Dave shrugged. "Like I said, it just looked right. Are we done with the tests? I'm getting hungry, and whatever. That green goo as you fed me earlier isn't sitting well." Commander Vexalia chittered quietly to her team. "Increase testing parameters. I want to know if this human is representative of his species or an outlier." Over the next several hours, Dave was subjected to increasingly complex challenges. He navigated simulated environments with unexpected adaptability, demonstrated remarkable pattern recognition, and showed an uncanny ability to identify weaknesses in complex systems. Most disturbing to the assessment team was his constant stream of questions about their technology, government, and military capabilities, delivered with such casual charm that they often found themselves answering before considering the security implications. So this ship runs on quantum fluctuation energy? Dave asked while being tested for radiation resistance. Neat. We're still messing around with fusion, though we've got some promising antimatter research happening at CERN. The energetic principles would be beyond your comprehension, Traz replied dismissively. Try me, challenged Dave. I'm a quick study. Before Traz could respond, Lieutenant Zorax interrupted. Commander, a word in private. They moved to an adjacent chamber, leaving Dave under observation. This human concerns me, stated Zorax bluntly. His questions are too specific, too targeted. He's gathering intelligence. Commander Vexalia's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You're being paranoid, Lieutenant. He's simply curious, as most primitive species are when encountering superior technology. With respect, Commander, I've observed 17 primitive species during my military career. None behaved like this. They were overwhelmed, terrified, or worshipful. This human acts as though meeting an advanced galactic civilization is no more remarkable than encountering a foreign culture on his own world. Perhaps humans are uniquely adaptable, suggested Vexalia. The xenobiological data supports this hypothesis. Or perhaps, countered Zorax, we're being manipulated. I recommend we suspend further information sharing and initiate a strategic assessment of Earth's actual military capabilities, not just what our initial scans detected. Commander Vexalia considered this for a moment. Your concern is noted, Lieutenant. However, the assessment protocols are clear. We will continue as planned, though I will authorize limited additional scans of the human's home planet. When they returned, they found Dave examining his own biological readouts on one of the laboratory screens. Interesting stuff, he remarked. According to this, I've got elevated cortisol levels and mild dehydration. Any chance I could get some water? Real water, not that silver liquid you offered earlier. Traz reluctantly provided a container of purified H2O, which Dave drank gratefully. Much better, he said. So what's the verdict? Do I pass the alien equivalent of the SATs? Commander Vexalia's translator took a moment to process the reference before she replied. Your performance has been noteworthy. We will now proceed to cultural and sociological assessment. Great, said Dave, setting down the empty container. But first, mind if I send a quick message home? My folks will be wondering where I am. The request triggered immediate alarm among the assessment team. Lieutenant Zorax moved forward. Absolutely not. No communication with your planet will be permitted until the assessment is complete. Dave held up his hands in a placating gesture. Just asking. No need to get your tentacles in a twist. My species does not experience tentacle torsion, Zorax replied stiffly. Figure of speech, Dave explained. We humans use a lot of those. Makes language more colorful, you know. Inefficient communication methodology, noted Traz. Maybe, conceded Dave. But it's more fun. Speaking of fun, when do I get the grand tour? I've only seen this lab and the landing bay so far. Commander Vexalia exchanged glances with Lieutenant Zorax. The standard assessment protocol did include a limited tour to observe the subject's reactions to advanced technology. A monitored excursion can be arranged, she decided. Lieutenant Zorax will escort you. Fantastic, said Dave, hopping off the examination platform with unexpected energy. Lead the way, Lieutenant. As they departed, Commander Vexalia turned to Traz. Prepare the planetary assessment drones. I want a more detailed analysis of Earth's military capabilities. You're concerned? Asked Traz. No, chittered Vexalia. Merely thorough. But as she watched the human casually strolling alongside, the visibly tense Vargon military officer, she couldn't quite suppress a flutter of unease in her thoracic ganglia. Something about Dave Thornton didn't add up, and the Zalaxian hegemony hadn't conquered half the known universe by ignoring anomalies. Lieutenant Zorax led Dave through the massive ship, maintaining a careful distance and keeping one tentacle near his sidearm at all times. The human seemed inordinately interested in everything, the propulsion systems, the weapons arrays, the crew quarters, and especially the command center. This is incredible, Dave remarked, gazing at the vast, holographic display showing the Enlightened Dominance's position relative to Earth. How many crew members does this ship have? That information is classified, Zorax replied stiffly. Just making conversation, Dave said with a shrug. Must be thousands, though, given the size of this place. Or do you folks need less personal space than humans? Zorax's gill slits pulsated with irritation. Your attempts to extract tactical information are transparent, human. Dave laughed. That strange barking sound that still made Zorax's epidermis ripple uncomfortably. Tactical information? I'm just a test pilot, Lieutenant, not a spy. Then explain your unusual level of comfort with our technology. Most primitive species react with fear or reverence. Dave paused at a viewport, gazing out at the stars. Maybe we're not as primitive as you think, or maybe I'm just hard to impress. My Aunt Mabel's Christmas fruitcake. Now that's truly terrifying. Before Zorax could respond to this puzzling statement, his communication device pulsed. Lieutenant, return the human to the assessment chamber immediately, came Commander Vexalia's voice, her tone uncharacteristically urgent. Acknowledged, replied Zorax, turning to Dave. Our tour is concluded. Just getting to the good parts, Dave complained, but he offered no resistance as Zorax escorted him back toward the laboratory section. Upon their return, they found Commander Vexalia and the senior assessment team gathered around a holographic display depicting Earth. The mood in the chamber had noticeably shifted. The scientists' postures were rigid, their communication patterns rapid and clipped. What's going on? Asked Dave. You folks look like you've seen a ghost. Do your species have ghosts? Or is that just a human thing? Commander Vexalia turned to face him, her compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of Earth's hologram. Human. Dave, our detailed planetary scans have revealed several anomalies that require explanation. Such as? Dave replied, his tone still casual, though Zorax detected a subtle change in his posture, a slight straightening of the spine, a shifting of weight to the balls of his feet. Our initial scans detected only rudimentary space capabilities and weapon systems, Vexalia explained. However, our detailed analysis has discovered evidence of advanced technology hidden beneath the surface of your planet and on your moon. Technology that appears to be deliberately camouflaged from orbital detection. Dave's expression remained neutral. Huh, that's weird. Furthermore, continued Vexalia, we've detected artificial constructs in the outer reaches of your solar system that were not there when we arrived. They appear to be some form of monitoring stations recently activated. Is that right? Dave said, rubbing his chin. No idea what those could be. Lieutenant Zorax moved closer, his military training now on high alert. We've also intercepted encrypted transmissions originating from your vessel. Transmissions that began shortly after your arrival on our ship. For the first time since his arrival, Dave's casual demeanor faltered slightly. Well, about that. My ship's probably just sending automated diagnostics. Nothing to worry about. The transmissions contain detailed technical specifications of our ship, stated Zorax flatly, including our defensive capabilities and propulsion systems. A moment of tense silence filled the chamber. Then Dave sighed, his shoulders relaxing. Well, it was worth a shot, he said, his tone shifting to something more measured and professional. I was hoping to maintain the facade a bit longer, but you folks are thorough, I'll give you that. Commander Vexalia's antennae stiffened. Explain yourself, human. Dave straightened up, all pretense of the bumbling, casual test pilot now gone. Commander, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about why I'm really here and what happens next. Lieutenant Zorax immediately drew his weapon, a neural disruptor designed to incapacitate without killing. Commander, I recommend we place the human in containment immediately. Dave raised his hand slowly. That won't be necessary, Lieutenant. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just the opposite, in fact. Then explain these transmissions, demanded Vexalia. Explain the hidden technology on your world. I'm not just a test pilot, Dave admitted. I'm a diplomatic envoy, sent to make first contact after we detected your ship entering our solar system. Impossible, chittered Traz. Your species lacks the technological capability to detect our stealth systems. Dave smiled. Not the friendly, casual grin he'd worn before, but something more knowing. That's the thing about humans, Dr. Traz. We're full of surprises. He lowered his hands slowly. The truth is, we've been watching the stars for a very long time, waiting, preparing. We knew someday someone would come, someone like your hegemony, a vast advanced empire with a habit of assessing and integrating less developed worlds. Commander Vexalia's compound eyes narrowed. You claim to have anticipated our arrival? How? We intercepted transmissions from other worlds you've integrated, Dave explained. Distress calls, warnings, desperate pleas for help. We've been listening to the galaxy's radio chatter for centuries. Even if that were true, countered Vexalia, you couldn't possibly have understood the transmissions. The languages would be unknown to you. The human has been gathering intelligence all along, Zorax hissed, just as I suspected. Not just gathering intelligence, Dave corrected. Buying time. A new alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship, a piercing, urgent sound that made several of the assessment team flinch. Commander, called a voice over the communication system. We're detecting multiple objects approaching from the direction of Earth, hundreds of them moving at high velocity. Commander Vexalia's composure finally cracked. Impossible. Our scans confirm they have no significant space fleet. We don't, agreed Dave calmly. Those aren't ships. Then what are they? Demanded Zorax, his tentacles constricting around his weapon. Dave's expression turned solemn. A message, from humanity to the Zalaxian hegemony. Outside the vast ship, in the cold vacuum of space, hundreds of objects streaked toward the enlightened. Dominance. They weren't the crude missiles or nuclear weapons the hegemony had expected from a primitive species. They were something far more sophisticated and far more concerning. They were a declaration of intent from a species that had decided it would not be assessed, classified, or integrated without having a say in the matter. The human-alien war was about to begin, and only one side had been preparing for it. The command center of the enlightened dominance erupted into organized chaos as the unidentified objects approached. Tactical officers reported to their stations. Defense systems hummed to life, and Commander Vexalia dispatched security teams throughout the ship. Bring the human, she ordered Lieutenant Zorax. He may provide tactical insights. In the vast holographic display dominating the command center, hundreds of small objects could be seen accelerating toward the hegemony vessel. They were roughly cylindrical, each about the size of a human automobile with no visible propulsion system. Analysis? Demanded Vexalia. The tactical officer, a multi-limbed Arcturian, responded promptly. Objects appear to be unmanned drones, no life signs detected, minimal energy signatures, no recognizable weapon systems. Then they pose no threat, Vexalia concluded, her antennae relaxing slightly. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Dave remarked as he was escorted into the command center. Size isn't everything. Lieutenant Zorax kept a firm grip on the human's arm. Explain these devices. Are they weapons? In a manner of speaking, Dave replied enigmatically, though not the kind you're thinking of. Commander Vexalia approached. Dave, her imposing height forcing the human to crane his neck to meet her compound gaze. You will explain immediately, or we will be forced to take defensive action against your world. Dave remained unnervingly calm. Commander, those drones are carrying information, specifically a message from Earth to the Zalaxian hegemony. I suggest you let them deliver it before making any hasty decisions. Information? Vexalia clicked her mandibles skeptically. You expect me to believe your species launched hundreds of drones merely to deliver a message? We wanted to make sure you got it, Dave said with a shrug. One drone might be easy to ignore, hundreds are harder to dismiss. The tactical officer interrupted. Commander, the objects have surrounded our vessel and are now stationary, maintaining a perimeter of approximately 1,000 chemetric units. On the holographic display, the drones could be seen forming a perfect sphere around the massive Hegemony ship, a feat of coordination that suggested sophisticated autonomous navigation and positioning systems. "Now what?" demanded Vexalia. As if in answer, each drone simultaneously activated a projection system, bathing the void of space in brilliant light. The projections merged to form a single, massive holographic image visible from the command center viewport, the image of a human female in formal attire. "Greetings, representatives of the Zalaxian Hegemony," the projection began, its voice transmitted directly to the ship's communication systems. "I am Secretary General Chen of the United Earth Government. We welcome you to our solar system and thank you for receiving our envoy, Commander Thornton." Dave gave a small wave. "Hey, boss, they've been treating me well, mostly." The holographic Secretary General continued. "We understand your civilization has a protocol for assessing and integrating what you consider to be primitive species. We appreciate your interest in Earth, but we feel it necessary to clarify a few points before this process continues." Commander Vexalia's antennae twitched with indignation. The audacity! A primitive species dictating terms to the Hegemony? The hologram seemed to anticipate this reaction. "First, Earth is not as primitive as your initial scans may have suggested. While it's true we have not achieved the technological sophistication of the Hegemony, we have deliberately maintained a low technological profile in our public infrastructure, a precaution born of our somewhat paranoid nature. Second, humanity has no interest in being assessed or integrated into any empire, no matter how benevolent it claims to be. We value our independence and self-determination above all else." Lieutenant Zorax's gill slits pulsated with agitation. "Commander, this is unprecedented. No species has ever refused assessment. Third," the hologram continued relentlessly, "we wish to establish diplomatic relations with the Zalaxian Hegemony, based on mutual respect and recognition of sovereignty. We believe peaceful coexistence is possible between our civilizations without the need for hierarchical classifications or integration." The command center had fallen completely silent, every alien eye fixed on the enormous human hologram floating in space. "Finally," said Secretary General Chen, her expression growing more serious, "we feel it necessary to demonstrate that Earth is capable of defending itself should diplomatic overtures be rejected. The drones surrounding your vessel are equipped with a technology we call the quantum resonance disruptor. It is capable of temporarily disabling your ship's propulsion and weapon systems without causing permanent damage." Commander Vexalia's compound eyes widen.